Some people are haunted by what they've done, but others are haunted by the things they never said, the apology they held back, the truth they buried, the silence that echoed louder than any scream. This is a story about a man named Eli and the price he paid for staying quiet. Eli was the kind of man who kept to himself, not because he lacked opinions, but because speaking up always felt like too much, too risky, too loud. He believed silence was strength, that if you didn't stir the waters, you'd never drown in them. He saw things. He noticed the way people shifted uncomfortably in truth's presence. So he learned to say nothing. He thought it made him kind, harmless, safe. Until the day his best friend's wife came to him, eyes wide with panic, voice barely a whisper. "If he asks, tell him I was with you." Eli froze. His heart pounded, but his lips didn't move. He nodded. It was just one lie, one tiny silence. But sometimes, silence is louder than any spoken word. And Eli had just screamed betrayal without opening his mouth. Days passed, then weeks. His friend kept smiling, kept inviting him out for beers, kept talking like nothing had changed, but something had. Eli could barely meet his eyes. He started avoiding calls. Conversations felt brittle, forced. Every laugh was tight, every silence felt like the edge of a cliff. Then it came. Not a confrontation, not a breakdown, just a message. "I know, I found out. Don't bother." His friend was gone, not just from his life, but from this world. They found him in his garage, engine running, hose taped to the exhaust, and a final note left behind. "Everyone knew but me." That was the worst part. Eli read it over and over as if the ink might vanish if he looked long enough. But it didn't. It burned. It wasn't the affair that destroyed him. It was the silence, the knowing glances, the withheld truths, the realization that the people he loved most thought so little of his dignity, they couldn't even give him the courtesy of honesty. Eli tried to make things right. He sent flowers, wrote letters, showed up at the funeral and stood in the back like a ghost. But guilt doesn't fade. It festers. He carried that silence like a second skin. And every time someone lied to protect themselves, he remembered the voice of the man who never got the truth. Everyone knew but me. Years passed. Eli moved. New job, new life, new friends. But real closeness, that was gone. He stopped opening up, not because others didn't deserve trust, but because he didn't trust himself with it. Every time someone looked him in the eye and said, "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" That same old voice answered inside him, "You didn't last time." So he stayed agreeable, pleasant, harmless, distant. Then one rainy night he sat down and did something he hadn't done in years. He wrote. He told the whole story, every detail, every regret, every moment he could have spoken, and didn't. He didn't post it. He didn't send it. He folded the letter, drove to the old park where a bench had been placed in his friend's memory, and slid the envelope underneath. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. And for the first time in years, the silence inside him didn't hurt so much. Silence is easy. It doesn't offend, it doesn't confront, it doesn't risk. But silence has a cost, and the ones who pay it are rarely the ones who stayed quiet.